Hey all, welcome back to Monday, and that means it's countdown day here on the channel. And this round of voting by fans all across social media focused on the top 10 Transformers tanks. In other words, Transformers that have tank alt modes. And what ended up happening was a lot of votes came in for different molds, but of the same character. So rather than having a top 10 that would be all, for example, different Blitzwing molds, or a top 10 that would be all, for example, different Megatron molds, you'll see that what I ended up doing is kind of putting together votes that were for basically the same character, just different iterations of it. You'll see what I mean. This is one of those times where, what we have in plastic meets what we have in fiction, where different eras come together under the same name of the same character, trying to fit as many in on this list as possible based on hundreds upon hundreds of votes. So without any further ado, let's jump into the latest GotBot Countdown. Hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, man, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe while you're at it, my baby. Hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton. It lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all of the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all of my social media links, all of that in the description down below. Also in the description down below, and if you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. You can check us out on Patreon. You can see what we have to offer to you through Spring, or of course you can hit the join button right here on YouTube and become a channel member. And we're going to look at the first honorable mention. The only honorable mention, and that is Overlord. Now, here's a perfect example. It wasn't specified what Overlord we're talking about. Are we talking about, for example, Double Evil? Are we talking about G1 Overlord? Are we talking about Titan's Return? It was just Overlord. And as we know, certainly the Titan's Return one splits into two, and the lower half of his body turns into a tank. So that's why he got the vote that he did. Did not make the list. You'll see as we go through. I tried to explain how there'll be an amalgam of characters come together for some of these. You'll see what I mean as we go through. As I said, Overlord didn't make the list, so who did? You know what we're going to do, man. We're going to kick things off with number 10 of first. Coming in at number 10 is an interesting one and sort of a late addition, because the original iteration of this character never ever transformed, never ever even had an alt mode. It was really more a drone than anything. But thanks to the Kingdom line, new life has been breathed into none other than Slammer. That's right. The character of Slammer. I don't know if the people would have voted for him the way that they did had he not had this update, because the original one was really just a drone of Metroplex, right? In the Kingdom line, he was given a robot mode, he was given kind of a bit more of a personality, and he became his own bot. Robot mode, tank mode, how can you ask for more? Slammer takes the number 10 slot. Number 9 takes us to Headmasters and Hardhead. Of course, Hardhead, one of the earliest, most prolific tanks in Transformers, especially if you're a fan of Headmasters. How can you forget about this huge cannon? Usually, of course, it's up over his shoulder. I mean, not only is he a tank, but he's a tank whose turret is kind of always out there. I tend to leave it down here just because it's easier to kind of position him on the shelf. Hardhead, yeah. One of the originators of the tank mode, one of the favorites of the tank mode. G1, the updated Titan's Return version, does not matter. Hardhead took the number 9 slot. And coming in at number 8, well, I have a version of this character, but I can't find it. After looking for about 40 minutes, I just gave up. Number 8 is Decepticon Quake, double target master. So if you include Heater and Tip Top with him, then he not only has his barrel, which in and of itself is impressive, but now you can use the target masters to also help arm him up even more. If you're talking about the Titan's Return version, it's the exact same mold, really, with the new head sculpt, as we have for Hardhead. I know he's around here somewhere with my custom Heater and custom Tip Top. I just don't know where I put him. It's a real shame because his mix of grays and kind of purpley maroons looks absolutely beautiful. One of the best head sculpts I think we ever had in the Titans Return line, or any line for that matter. Quake, often forgotten, but don't underestimate that lad as a tank. Enough fans remember this double target master that he was able to lock in the number 8 slot. Number 7 I also don't have a version of because there isn't really a mainline version of this guy. Now there's been some third-party versions of this guy, but I don't think any of them really scale with the mainline, and that's my bread and butter. I believe there's an offering from Iron Factory of this guy for the Legends class fans. I'm pretty sure, I think it was MMC done a big version that I think would probably scale closer to Masterpiece than anything else. If you haven't figured it out by now, I'm talking about Tarn, the leader of the Decepticon Justice Division. I don't know a whole lot about him. I do know he's a tank. Certainly in, was it Cyberverse, I believe, where he actually made kind of his first appearance in fiction outside of comic books. Even then, an engaging character, an evil character, a strong Decepticon. And if you're a Decepticon and you're not going to be a plane, then what better mode to be than a big bad bruiser of a tank? Tarn thought that a tank was formidable enough that that's the alt mode he took on for himself. Anyway, you cut it, fans who love Tarn came out and voted in droves for him, enough that he was able to take the number 7 slot. Alright, with a hiccup at number 8 and number 7 because I didn't have versions in hand to show. Number 6 gets us back on track with Impactor. Yeah, I didn't know the guy. I didn't have any connection to him from the G1 comics. Didn't know he existed. Knew nothing about him. I've talked about this before. However, I love this guy and I love his clever transformation enough that when I was really feeling downtrodden about the fandom in 2019, this guy really helped to kind of solidify my love for Transformers once again. He is an example of everything I like about this franchise. Bold colors, excellent articulation, a fun transformation, and a big bad bruiser of a tank alt mode. How can you not like Impactor? Enough fans like Impactor that he took the number 6 slot. Ah yes, and we are at number 5. And you know what number 5 is. Number 5 is the most coveted of locations because it's the halfway mark. And at the halfway mark, we sort of delve into the movies, at least the Revenge of the Fallen section of the movies, with a character that I don't believe ever did appear on screen, but has sort of garnered a cult following, and it's Bludgeon. This iteration of Bludgeon turns into a very convincing tank. It is excellent. Right down to the rubber treads. How could you not like it? Now the treads don't move. There's little rollies on them. But man, oh man, what a dastardly tank when it's all said and done. What a big, formidable, beautiful looking tank when it's all said and done. Even better if you got the upgrade kit with the better head. I find it really hard not to be a huge fan of Bludgeon, and enough fans felt the same way about Revenge of the Fallen Bludgeon and his tank mode. Shout out, by the way, to RID 2015. That version of Bludgeon had 1 vote and it got lumped in with this guy. Bludgeon, as a tank, took the number 5 slot. Number 4 sort of sticks with the movie verse. In fact, it sticks with the 07 movie, at least mostly. And the character that was originally called Devastator, but henceforth became known as a Brawl. Yeah, this isn't that Brawl. This is the Combiner Wars Brawl. Here's why. Here's one of those examples I was talking about. The majority of votes for Brawl were for the 07 movie. However, lumped in with it, we had some votes for G2 Brawl, we had some votes for G1 Brawl, and we had some votes for, you guessed it, Combiner Wars Brawl. So none of the other ones would have ranked by itself, but when put together with the plethora of votes for the 07 lad, easy for this guy to take the number 4 slot. Oh, top 3. We're getting close. And at number 3 we have Blitzwing. Now, to be fair again, this is one of those where it was a number of votes that went into this guy. So a lot of people, the majority of people said G1 Blitzwing. A couple of people said the Legacy Blitzwing. A handful of people, we'll say, said the Titans Return version. A couple of people said the Generations version. We had votes that were for KFC's Ditka. We had a couple of votes that were for DX9's offering. I think that's all of the Blitzwings that actually received votes. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's all of them that actually received votes. And if I didn't say it, of course, the Titans Return one got some as well. Many iterations of Blitzwing. All of them triple changers. The plane, nobody thought of this time around, but that tank to varying degrees of success has been pulled off many times. And whenever you see a beige tank coming at you with some purple highlights, it's probably Blitzwing. Very iconic character, very iconic tank mode, and recognized by fans the world over well enough that he was able to lock in the number 3 slot. Ah yes, and we are at number 2 now. And while it's a foregone conclusion that this character was going to appear on the list, I bet the people that voted for it thought that this character would be number 1, and it is not. I'm talking about Bam Kapow Zowie, none other than our buddy Warpath. Now, honestly, the majority of votes that came in for Warpath were geared toward the Generations Warpath, the H-Tank version, and that thing is magnificent. However, close on the heels of that was the Kingdom Warpath. So rather than have Warpath appear twice in high numbers on this list, I just put all of the votes for both Generations and Kingdom Warpath together, and this happens to be the Kingdom one. Though, honestly, I think Warpath is really lucky. He hasn't had many misses. His biggest miss was probably the Combiner Wars Legends one because it didn't have the chest turret section. And even that wasn't necessarily a bad mold. It just was shoehorned as Warpath. Kingdom, Generations, the old Legends. There's so many great Warpaths. And this tank favorite character of so many fans comes in at the number 2 slot. And then we reach the apex, the top, where there can only be one. And number 1 is none other than G2 Megatron. Now, to be fair, G2 Megatron had the most votes of any Megatron, but close on his heels was the Combiner Wars Leader Class Megatron. I get it, it's a gorgeous tank mode. Bit iffy robot, but gorgeous tank mode. Again, rather than taking up, say, position number 2 and position number 1 on the list with 2 different versions of Megatron, I just kind of lumped them together. Also a couple of votes, and worth mentioning here, a couple of votes for the Siege, a couple of votes for the Legends or the Core Class one, a couple of votes for the G2 Core Class, a couple of votes for the Revenge of the Fallen Tank Lad, but by far the top 2 were the Combiner Wars. And when I say top 2, I don't just mean top 2 Megatrons. I mean, honestly, number 2 and number 1 easily could have been Combiner Wars Leader Class Megatron. Actually, I should clarify. Combiner Wars Leader Class G1 Megatron. There was also a couple of votes for the Armada. Or this guy. Yeah, that Leader Class or the G2 Megatron. It was by far, these two took the top 2 slots. And I lumped them together. And together, without anybody even coming remotely close, Megatron took the number 1 slot. And there you go, we've gone from 10 down to 1, and I'm not going to lie to you, I honestly thought that Warpath was going to be number 1. I'm surprised Megatron got the love that he did because so many people say, I don't like Megatron as a tank, I'd rather him be a pistol, right? I get that, but I don't think we'll ever see that again, and I think it makes sense that Megatron would be a tank. Now, most people, I think, voted G2 because they said, look, the G2 iteration coloration was always a tank. And I don't know if they meant that coloration, or if they meant the combat hero, or if they meant the, like, purpley and blue version, or like the tiger stripe version. There's so many versions that were called G2 Megatron that were all tanks. Like I said though, Armada was lumped in there a little bit with a couple of votes. Siege was lumped in there a little bit with a couple of votes. The Revenge of the Fallen was lumped in there with a couple of votes. And the Combiner Wars Leader Class clearly was well up there as well. What else got some votes? The Taka, the Taco tank, the T-A-K-O tank. I think it was a Beast Wars thing. That got a vote. Straxus got a vote, that being the Generation Straxus. Demolisher got a couple of votes. Titan's Return Black Shadow, or Sky Shadow if you prefer that name, got some votes. Omega Supreme, some people wanted G1 Omega Supreme to make it. Man, I was hoping he would too. Just didn't get the support. What else do we have here? Beast Wars Rampage. Yeah, I get that one. I like that one. Prime Shockwave, RID 2015 Megatronus. And why not throw in the Micromaster, I think he's a Micromaster, Bomb Shock. Growl also got a couple of votes too, if I'm not mistaken. What do you know? What do you know? There are a bunch of Transformers that turn into tanks, even more than people voted for. Hundreds upon hundreds of votes. Megatron took the top with a couple of iterations of himself, and honestly 3 and 4 could have been both versions of Warpath. You know, the top 4 could have been, by rights, Generations Warpath, Kingdom Warpath, Combiner Wars Leader Class Megatron, and then the G2 Megatron. But that seemed like a pretty excessive use of slots for Warpath and Megatron, you know? So I tried to be as efficient as I could to allow as many characters as possible to actually rank. I hope it was successful. Let me know who your favorite tank transformer is. I appreciate you guys coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. You can check us out on Patreon. You can see what we have to offer to you through Spring, or of course you can hit the join button right here on YouTube and become a channel member. Don't forget to also hit the subscribe button, stick around, have some fun with us, and remember that somehow, some way, each and every single day, you do make a difference. And I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights at the stop motion premieres or the old-fashioned way, right here inside the videos.